What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, well, I'm going to be honest with you, I've got some kind of weird news. You see, we've actually already, somehow, and I'm not entirely sure how or why, we've got some news about Set 5 of the Digimon trading card game. Now, some of you at this stage are going to be going, well, hang on a second, Wossy. You've just started showing us news about Set 4 of the Digimon trading card game. A couple of days ago, you showed us that poster that actually revealed the first 4 cards, which was kind of cool. Hopefully, at least. And then was it like yesterday that you showed us Devimon, that brand new Digimon that just made its debut in the anime, and is already getting a card that was revealed like an hour or so after it was officially revealed in the anime, which incidentally I still think is such a cool way to integrate the TCG with the wider Digimon world. I thought that was awesome. We haven't even seen the pack art really for Set 4 yet. Although we have seen a poster. And we haven't really seen many cards, and we don't really know all that much about it. And now you've got news about Set 5? And the answer is, yeah, sorry, we do. Now, let's be clear, we don't have a, we don't have a lot of news, I think it is fair to say. We are fairly limited on what we know. I'll tell you what we know in a second. And that does actually mean that we can start making some suppositions. What we are going to do in this video is we are going to take a look through the current release schedule and discuss whether things are coming out a little bit too fast, what it means for England, etc. So what do we know? Very little. The news was posted by Yu over on the Facebook group. And here is everything that we know. It is releasing on the 26th of February. It still has the set number we would expect of BT05. And it is called Battle of Omega. That's it. That's what we know. But this is actually extremely interesting, because now that we've got 5 sets, we can actually start looking at the distance between sets, the gap between sets, and start basically figuring out roughly how regularly we should expect to be seeing new cards. We don't really have much information about what's happening in the UK, unfortunately, and US, Europe, etc., because we've only seen 2 sets and they're deliberately releasing 1 month apart to try and catch us up a little bit. Although I did say at the time, we're not actually going to catch up, and this is just more evidence that we're not going to catch up. So we'll have a look at the release schedule in a moment, but I'm kind of interested by the title of the set here, Battle of Omega. Now that seems to suggest, and I am not the only one that thinks that, it seems to suggest rather strongly that there's going to be some Omegamon stuff going on. Now, of course, we have already seen 2 Omegamon in the game. There were, or Omnimon, I believe it is actually called in English. We've already seen the Omnimon, which is coming in Booster 1.0, which is rather cool. And we've seen Omnimon Alter S. Now, the Omnimon coming in Booster 1, for those of you that are unaware, haven't seen many of my videos, etc., you should know that Omnimon is the Digimon, the deck to beat in Set 1. Whether you're playing a blue deck or a red deck, Omnimon is absolutely the Digimon to beat from Set 1. When you Digivolve, you choose one of your opponent's Digimon and delete all of the Digimon with that name, i.e. pick a name, delete all of them. And when you attack, you may unsuspend it. So you suspend when you attack, you can unsuspend it by putting a level 6 Digimon from its evolution sources into your hand. But given that they don't generally, level 6s, have inheritable skills, there isn't really any downside to that. You just get an extra activation of Omnimon, in addition to wiping all of a particular name from the board. A particularly fun counter against Diaboromon, who, of course, when you attack, keeps summoning tokens called Diaboromon. So, yeah, kind of hilarious against that. But it's one of the best cards in the entire game, so cool. Now, as for Omnimon Alter S, it's a very similar kind of thing going on here. It's got the same stats. When you Digivolve, you de-Digivolve one all of your opponent's Digimon. That is to say, you discard the top level of each Digimon. You take a 6 down to a 5, a 5 down to a 4, etc. And any that are then left with 5,000 power or less get deleted. So it's another kind of board wipey skill, but with the added bonus here that you can potentially take out many more Digimon. And even though you're not taking out the bigger Digimon, you're still able to take a 6 down to a 5, a 5 down to a 4, etc. And then it's got the other skill that lets you return a level 6 to your hand to make it unblockable. But of course, the problem with that is that it doesn't make you active again, doesn't unsuspend you. It's still a cool skill, don't get me wrong, but I think we can do a little bit better. I've said a couple of times now I prefer the first skill on Omnimon Ultra S and the second skill on just regular Omnimon. And I go through those cards in this video basically to say this. They have been redonk so far. So far, the Omnimon cards we've seen have been ridiculous, and I don't really see any reason to suggest anything different would happen this time around. It looks like we're getting more Omnimon coming, and to be blunt, you should expect those Omnimon to be really good, because that's what we've essentially been trained to think so far. So yeah, that's fun. So what does this do to the release schedule then? I think it's probably a good idea to have a sit down and go, right, let's have, because this was the first thing I did when I saw this news. Let's sit down, let's have a look at the release schedule, and let's figure out what's going on in terms of the frequency of releases here, because it is an important question. So we started off initially with the first expansion. The first expansion was New Evolution. It came out on May the 15th, 2020, and I am personally delighted that the Digimon TCG, one of my very favourite games ever, actually launched on my daughter's birthday. That was cool. We then saw Ultimate Power coming around on July the 22nd, 2020. So we're talking exactly 2 months and 1 week. So we've got a roughly 2-month gap coming in there. From Ultimate Power to Union Impact, which was the third set, we had October. So we've got July, August, September, October. We've got a 3-month gap. But wait, it's not quite that simple. The lovely Duke Bu Yang, apologies again for the pronunciation, who kind of knows her stuff when it comes to Digimon, has pointed out that it is widely believed that this third expansion was actually delayed to make sure there weren't any stock shortages. Essentially, and again, we know we've got the whole COVID thing, coronavirus. We know at the moment that factories are under a lot of pressure and the world is not working like the world would usually work. We've all seen that the pre-sale outside of Japan is, well, it was initially expanded in terms of allocation, then it contracted. There's less than they were hoping because they were let down by their factory, and they literally said as a direct result of this whole pandemic thing. So maybe that explains it. Because to then go from Union Impact on October the 30th to Great Legend, which is December the 18th, I believe I told you that was, which is only like a 6-week gap. But of course, that kind of makes perfect sense. Because if set 3 was delayed, then sets 3 and 4 would be a little bit closer together. And then we've got December the 18th with Great Legend, which will then go into February the 26th. We do tend to have kind of a 2 months and a week kind of thing going on, which is going to be the new set, this Battle of Omega. Which means that if we kind of correct BT3, we've basically got 2 months per set, just a tiny bit over. The first set launched in May. We then 9 months later have 4 more sets, which means 4 sets releasing in 9 months, which works out to pretty much exactly 2 months and 1 week between sets. So following this logic through, we should be expecting the next set right at the beginning of May, add the 2 months from February to get to the end of April, and then add a week to get to the beginning of May, which would basically mean we get 5 sets a year. I know that would mean set 6 comes out in May, but you can't count the first set, because a year after the first set, we've had 5 more sets. So we're talking 5 expansions a year, which is a lot. Now, Pokemon actually has this level of sets. But the thing about Pokemon is they have main sets and mini sets, so it's not quite the same. This is a pretty speedy release schedule. Bearing in mind, in April we had the first lot of starter decks, and in November we're getting the second lot of starter decks. Incidentally, that's a 5-month gap, so if this holds, we can expect the next starter decks to be coming around at the end of April, just before set 6 comes out. But again, that is hardcore extrapolation, and a lot of mathematicians will tell you that extrapolation is, especially with only 2 data points, not necessarily the best idea. What does that mean for releases outside of Japan? We have literally no idea whatsoever, and anyone that tells you that we do is purely guessing with no basis whatsoever. We know we're getting Booster 1 in January, we know we're getting Booster 1.5 in February, we know that that is being done in order to catch us up to sets 1 to 3. Does that mean that we are going to have 2 more sets that are 1 month apart to catch us up with sets 4 to 6? Nobody knows. Does that mean we are going to have our Booster 2, which is going to be the same as BT4 in Japan? Nobody knows. We have literally no information whatsoever, and given that they're being called special boosters and we're getting a 1 and a 1.5, all we really know is that the first lot of releases are not the same as they're going to be moving forward. We have literally no other information whatsoever, so I'm not going to try and guess at this or even really talk about it much until we get to a stage where we have at least something to go on. So there we go. Right, so that's what we know about the new set and what we can suppose, but now it's over to you guys. I want predictions, I want thoughts, I want you to go nuts, but I want you to be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Digimon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.